remember.
So, okay, this is a postscript. I've never done this before in a podcast. This is really groundbreaking stuff here. But having stopped record with Heather and Gavin, Heather just started telling me about the environmental friendliness of ski holidays. And there are going to be people who are going to want to hear this. So over to you, Heather, extremely carbon literate Heather Davies. Please, can you tell us how it's possible as a recovering ski addict to go skiing and not feel really shit about yourself?
Yeah, so skiing in France, if you take the train or coach or something like that, rather than flying, it's actually one of the lowest carbon holidays that you can have. And that's because the lift infrastructure runs mainly on electricity, and the grid in France is very decarbonised. And normally what will happen when you go skiing, you go to a resort and you stay in that resort, and then you just take the lifts and maybe a shuttle bus or something like that. So your carbon footprint will be pretty low. And the same, because your accommodation is mainly run on electricity, and the grid is so decarbonized, it's just a very, very low carbon form of transport. I can drop you a link to a blog about it.
It's the same with the train as well, isn't it? Like the train
in France is almost all electric, compared to the UK, where there's still a lot of diesel rolling stock. So yeah, it's actually from a carbon perspective, it's one of the lowest carbon holidays you can have.
I'm about to cry. I haven't been on holiday for 6 years. We haven't taken flights for 6 years, apart from 2 flights I took to a retreat for purposeful business leaders. So I kind of chose to do that. And the reason I haven't taken flights is because my son's got allergies, and it's a long story, but people who've been listening to this podcast will have heard it 4 times. So I'm not going to bore anyone, but I've got to that point now where I love glamping in the UK so much, and I've realised holidaying in the UK is well fun, and therefore I'm like, oh, okay, not to go away. However, I'm missing my skiing a lot. And to hear you say that, the next thing is that my husband's never been skiing. How do you convince a man in his mid-40s that going skiing is a really good idea? That's the next challenge. Thank you both. That was amazing. I love that little postscript. Thanks, Heather. I'm going to press stop again, but I'm going to share this as episode, or like 2.0 of this great conversation. Gavin, have you got any final words of wisdom that only people who stay after the credits in the cinema would hear?
I would just say that you should link to Heather's 2 blogs, I think, on the carbon impact of holidays.
Yeah, there's 2.
It's fascinating.
So we did some comparisons, basically. So we compared things like a trip to Disney, a beach holiday, what else? So we did like cruises, a river cruise, Antarctic cruise, a safari. We compared the carbon footprints of all these different holidays, obviously making certain assumptions to see which the lowest were. And then I did another blog. So this is my colleagues at eCollective. And the other blog was about the lowest carbon holidays that we could come up with, and then what the principles are of a low carbon holiday. And it's things like, if you drive, have filling your car. So don't, if you're a group of mates, then fill your car with your mates and drive, because actually the carbon footprint per person becomes fairly negligible then. And then if you have an electric car, you can actually get really far. If you take the train, you can get really far. Obviously, long haul flights are out, but there's so much that you can do.
I don't even want to sit in an airport anymore. Thank you very much. Why would you do that if you can like nip on the tube to King's Cross and get on the train, and the kids can watch iPads and you can look out the window and read a lovely book by Alistair Humphrey, or Isabella Tree, or whoever you're reading at the time, or sorry, John Alexander, or Seth Godin. Anyway,
just a bit, on that note, my mum, because she obviously wants to come and see her grandchildren, because my 2 children are 2 and 9 months old.
Yeah.
She'll come to my house probably 6 or 7 times a year. And for the last 4 years, she's done every journey by train from Sheffield.
So nice. Can I? Oh, I'm from Sheffield. My grandma back in the day was from Sheffield. We'll have to have yet another conversation about that. Can I just ask you, if I want to come to your resort No, not your resort, but where you live. Where's my pen? So what's the name of where you live again?
So we're in the Three Valleys, which is Maribel.
Yeah, which one are you?
Maribel, Courchevel.
Okay, I don't mind going to Maribel very much. So if we get the train, it's not difficult, as Gavin has just said. Now, I've got all my ski gear, right, from back in the day, including my boots, which I bought in New Zealand, and then promptly broke my leg a day after getting them, having waited for the ski to arrive for 2 months, living in a caravan by Lake Wanker. So I'm not bitter about that at all. But anyway, I've got my boots. We don't go to New Zealand skiing anymore. So could I get for Rudy and my children, Gavin, would you sort them all out with upcycled, recycled ski wear?
We just lend it to them.
No, because okay, all right. So we'll come to you.
Like, there's a mate in the shop yesterday. I popped in there, Stu, good friend, works as one of the staff in the store, and Ryan, a good friend, popped in, and he'd obviously pre-organised it with Stu. He's like, I've got a mate coming out tomorrow for a couple of days. Stu said I could just borrow some of the gear, and I was like, yeah, get it sorted, find some stuff.
Why would you buy, like, exactly, why would you buy ski wear? Thank you, Gavin. Gavin's the like, why would you buy person? That's your headline.
Yeah.
Okay, so don't buy. Rudy, Francis, children, come out to Maribel. Gavin's going to sort out the clothes. Oh, Heather, can we just hear about the food thing? Because that's another thing you didn't mention. What's that all about? Are you now a chef as well?
No, I used to, when we ran the chalet, like, I mean, we just loved hosting people at home and having barbecue, big barbecues, and having mates over for dinner and stuff like that. And we still do that. But when we came out to the Alps, that was part of it, was like, basically when you run a chalet, you're doing a dinner party every night, aren't you? We had 16 guests a night in our chalet, and we do 3 courses every night.
You're just reminding me of my child.
So Francis, you can stay at Heather's, and she.
Yeah, it's what we're saying in conclusion, that either we can stay at Heather's house, or are you going to be able to point us to your favourite environmentally aware restaurants in the area and places?
Yeah, that's trickier.
Is that your next mission, to kind of try and up that ante a little bit?
I think that'd be harder. Like the traditional food is very much cheese and meat.
Yeah,
in our region.
That's a whole conversation for another day. Okay. Look, we've got as far as I can have a skiing holiday. Thank you very much. So that's great. I really appreciate that so much. In fact, this is going to be episode 1 of the 2, and then everyone can go on to listen to the preamble if they want. So thanks everyone for listening to this episode of the Francis Fogel Story Strategist podcast. I do encourage you to listen to what is now part 2, which is a bit like Star Wars, the part 1 of a conversation with Heather and Gavin, where you will then hear why they have, as we call it in the marketing world, empathy, authority, and the story that qualifies them to talk with such authority and conviction about skiing holidays and other holidays, and why you should listen to them. Thank you very much. Thank you, Heather and Gavin. If this is all people have time for, I want them to know that it's been a great pleasure having you on the show.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.